This is the end of the beginning. Welcome to today's show, Witchtok. Apparently, this is a real thing. Some of you may have heard of it before. I'm sure a lot of you haven't. But Witchtok, that's right. An area where witches can gather together and brainwash the youth out there, just like they're doing out in the public, really. Let's be honest with what they're doing. But where witches can gather together and, of course, do all sorts of challenges. That's kind of a way that they do these things and indoctrinate kids. Like they have these TikTok challenges. I've covered those things over the years where a lot of them were actually rituals, including, the one where they dump the buckets of water, the ice bucket challenge. These are all rituals. These all could be rooted and found in occult practices around the world over centuries. Right? Then they just normalize it. They're like, well, yeah, dumping a bucket of water is some type of ritual. Everybody tries to deflect on it. Just like the way they've normalized crystals and all these other things into Christianity. And they call it spirituality. And this is all witchcraft that we're seeing in our society. And this specifically, of course, is geared towards kids because obviously most people on TikTok are millennials and Gen Z, so they're younger. And they're on there and they're like, oh, what is this? And then you have witches talking and they're like, oh, are they doing real spells? And they're literally not just doing spells, they're putting spells on people. So one of the latest trends is focused on spells, potions, and prophecies, witchcraft. Videos with the hashtag Witchtok have amassed more than 30 billion views. That's right, billion views. Do you know how insane that is? How many people are looking up Witchtok? How many? That tells you if they're not looking it up so they could do videos like I'm doing. I just saw this was actually trending in a search. That's why I'm covering it, so you're aware of this stuff. So if you have kids or whatever and you want to you go to a church, tell them about this stuff. Because not enough pastors are talking about how witches and Satan are real, how the Bible warns about these things. People just ignore that type of stuff. And it's right in front of our faces where kids are being indoctrinated with this by influencers. They openly, I started my channels. I talked about how these people were such a danger to society. The reason everything was going the way it was because of celebrities and the influence. And people are like, oh, that's insane. They're not influencing. Now you have like people off the streets who are just influencers. You never heard of these people. They're getting 30 billion views, a group of people on TikTok who are telling people, promoting spell crafting and then using things the same way that I talked about the Satanists and the satanic temple and how they're getting into the schools now, right? And they go in there and they're like, oh, we're not teaching them, we're not doing blood rituals and all that stuff. What we're doing is we're playing Dungeons and Dragons and we're watching, Stranger Things and we're talking about equity, right? These are all New World Order satanic agendas and they're just wrapping it with a bow so that people don't get suspicious because if they literally were sacrificing a cat in the school, there'd probably be people with pitchforks, okay? So they gateway them and they start indoctrinating them just like this. It's a gateway to get kids into witchcraft. So 30 billion views. Creators say it's bringing the community closer than ever before. So witches are getting closer than ever to one another. TikTok's hashtag witch has received nearly 20 billion views. Witch TikTok has nearly 2 billion views. And Baby Witch, a hashtag for those new to the craft, has more than 600 million views. The fact that people are even searching for this is frightening. But why do you think people are just randomly searching for this stuff? Baby witch and all. Because it's getting subconsciously buried into their brains about witchcraft. They're watching all these movies about witches and witchcraft and spell casting from Disney and everything else. And they're sitting there and they're like, oh, yeah, witch. Oh, that's cool. I'm watching, a movie and they're doing like spells and stuff. The kids are. And then they look it up. That's how this works. You know what I mean? They wouldn't be thinking about witchcraft unless they were getting indoctrinated with it. Then they want to learn more about it. So here's somebody, Isla Skinner, known as Witch in the Wilderness on TikTok, lives in Cornwall and has amassed followers by performing what she describes as spells and magic. She says it makes her feel empowered. Witchcraft, paganism, it all gives you a bit of control back. You can live your life how you want. Oh, it sounds a lot like the entire mindset of Satanism. Do without will shall be the whole of the law under love. Do those words not ring clear to people? Do without will, which means do what you want, will be the law under love, right? Well, what are all the celebrities doing? Holding up heart symbols, constantly talking about love when it comes to accepting and tolerating just psychopath type behavior, okay? Insane asylum behavior that we're seeing in our society. But you need to accept it and love it and tolerate. This goes back to Aleister Crowley, which it all goes back to, which is why I warn, it's, talking about sounds of freedom and those things. If you don't realize that this stuff goes back to occult practice and Aleister Crowley, then you're missing the boat here. Because then you start to see that everything that this guy teaches is what we're seeing a mass indoctrination from the government, from these celebrities. And this was the guy who called himself the Beast, 666. So, it's pretty unbelievable that we're seeing this stuff go on and people are like, oh, yeah, live your life the way you want to live your life and do what you want. And people are like, that sounds great. We should all be able to do what we want. I should be able to come in your home and eat from your fridge and sleep with your wife. That's where this is headed. We're literally accepting kids castrating themselves. So how do you not think it's heading to that? People are going to need to get ready to protect themselves from these psychopaths. So she goes on to say, I live my life magically. I do magic every day. It gives people a real sense of individuality and the power to do things themselves. These are all trigger words. Okay, these are things that they use these things to warp people's minds. This is how we get to the part that we're at right now, the point we're at, right? Individuality, right? Empowerment, right? It creates narcissistic behavior. It creates psychopathic, sociopath type behavior where these people literally think that they're allowed to do whatever they want and should be allowed to do whatever they want, and rules shouldn't exist. And that the only reason that they're not successful in life is because of their skin color, their gender. It's unbelievable what they're convincing them. And it's because of trigger words like individual. What is it? When you sit there and think about it, when you were growing up, was somebody like, let's talk about your individuality. Was that happening in the Wild West? Right, walking in a saloon. Hey, what about your individuality? Do you feel empowered? Their empowerment was their fists and the other thing that they had holstered on them. They weren't going around going, oh, how are you feeling today? What are your feelings? Tell us about this stuff, right? They've weakened society and then they've empowered weak, sensitive people. And they've taken power and they've taken voices away from people who are, able to snap these people out of this nonsense they're living in and show them this crap that has to do with sorcery and witchcraft, which the Bible warns over and over about. What do people think it is? Witchcraft. What do you think it's just some, and you hear curses in the Bible and people think it means like the F word and things like that. Curses, spells. These are things that are forbidden. Isla believes TikTok has enabled people of all ages and from around the world to be a part of the witchcraft community. Witchcraft years ago, you had to find a coven, she says, and get initiated and trained. Now you can go to your local bookstore and grab a witchcraft book or a book about crystals. Yeah, and therein lies the problem. Because throughout centuries, what happened to witches, huh? What happened to witches when people found witches? And it wasn't because people didn't like how they looked. Now you can all, we all know how they look. I mean, woof, Buzz's girlfriend. But it was because of what they were doing. And it wasn't just grabbing rocks and crystals and not bothering. People like, oh, they weren't bothering anyone. They were doing stuff with children, with animals, with blood. Right? And they're like, oh, well, they weren't allowed in bookstores 50 years ago. It was banned 50 years ago. Right? Like she said, oh, you had to find a secret coven. Well, like I covered with Taylor Swift, the song Out of the Woods. All these celebrities that are openly admitting to being witches now, during all that fiasco with Trump, talking about spell binding, and still people don't see this stuff. The witches are admitting that we had to go to coven. And people are just like, oh, they're just playing make-believe with each other. They're not playing make-believe. Look where we're at in our society. You could blame Satanists and witches for where we're at. TikTok has changed the way we practice witchcraft. It's so acceptable now to learn from social media, right? And again, these are the things that are promoted on social media, while people like me and you are suppressed and silenced, even though people want to hear us. They don't want opposing voices to the Satanists and the witches because they don't want people to realize that it's real, even though they're flat out spell casting on you and telling you it's real right to your face. Witchtok content includes live streaming tutorials, educational videos, and documenting the day-to-day lives of witches. Frankie Castagna is from the USA and identifies as a gender-fluid Italian-American folk witch. Well, isn't that great? Frankie has 1.4 million followers through their Chaotic Witch Ant TikTok page and has amassed more than 90 million likes through content sharing about witchcraft. So 24-year-old said witchcraft is different in cultures, has different connotations. Witchcraft is not a religion, it's a belief, it's a spiritual practice. The term witch is one people elect to use themselves. It's so broad and encompasses so many traditions. Not true. Not true. That's how they get away with this. It's broad. Yeah, I'm a witch. And they're like, I'm a witch of nature. I just believe in nature. I love grass and trees and stuff. I'm a tree hugger. They're liars and deceivers, like their father, the devil. They say witchcraft can have connotations to the dark arts, but Ayla believes magic can be quite misunderstood. Hollywood and Disney have created this very dark and very evil character, which isn't necessarily true. Oh, Disney is promoting this stuff with Maleficent, with every single cartoon having a witch in it, and every single movie now promoting quote unquote superpowers or Star Wars, the Force. This is all about witchcraft. What do you think they shove it down your throat for? You know, they shove Star Wars down people's throats. It's the worst movie. I can't even make it through 10 minutes. It's the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. It is like a D-level film, and it's promoted as the greatest thing on the planet. Why? Because they've told you it's the greatest thing. And why are they doing that? Because they're shoving the Force down your throat. And what is it? Well, it's just conditioning into witchcraft is what it is. People are like, that's insane. Oh yeah, what's the Force? Huh? What is it? A force wind? A fart gust? It's witchcraft. It's an indoctrination on our society, and don't want anyone exposing it. But they will promote this crap. They will create things like Witchtok, and they will gear it towards your children. So I did this video so that you could know about this. It makes me absolutely sick to my stomach, but this is the world that we live in now. So what can you really do about it other than point it out to people? Hopefully they'll share this video. Hopefully they'll share and subscribe to the channel. But at the same time, we know the channel will be gone soon. So make sure you sub to the other channels linked below. And if you'd like to support this work, please consider becoming a patron to the channel. It helps greatly. If not, it's perfectly fine. I'll do my best to continue on here. But thanks again, everybody, for the support. Hope you're doing well. Get the word out about this horror hell that we're living amongst. Witchtok. Give me a break. I thank you for being here. God bless all of you and your families.